All right, folks. Hey, Aloha Friday. Thank you for being with me today. Hey, we have a special guest, special show today. We'll be talking about overcoming. So, leadership and overcoming is what we'll talk about today. Thank you, Dorothyann, for being with me. Tonight, we're excited to see what you're going to bring us in this realm. We were just talking before the show, how everybody has experienced in one way or another an opportunity to overcome. And, this is one of the very few times we can actually say that everybody has had something in the last few years. But before we get into all that stuff, all that jazz, tell us a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about the background and why we're talking about this.
Great. Again, thank you so much, Enrique, for having me tonight. I am privileged, and like I was talking about before the show, Hawaii is one of my bucket list items. So we will get there. But a little bit about me: I'm a child of God. I am a wife, and I am a stepmom. I am a published author and of my memoir, The Overcomer: Facing Challenges with Faith and Courage. And I am an overcomer coach and a live show host. I help people overcome so that they can share their story. And I never want anybody to feel alone. Growing up, I was bullied for my weight pretty much my entire life, and especially through school. Kids were brutal. So that led to low self-esteem, which led to me, making wrong choices and being in abusive relationships because I didn't think I could get any better. My family, my parents were chronically ill my entire life, anything from diabetes to heart and stroke. My mom went 20 years undiagnosed with angina and lupus. My uncle took his life Christmas Day 24 years ago, and just the 4 months ago my dad died of cancer. So it's been a heck of a roller coaster. But I wrote the book because it's my life story of how I overcome all those obstacles. The death of my father's not in there because I wrote the book in January of 2021. But I wrote it because I wanted people to know that they're not alone in their situations, that they too can overcome anything that comes their way if they choose to. It's just basically a choice. And I'm not going to say it doesn't suck in those hard times. There was several times I got depressed or things like that myself, but I always found a way to get myself out of that. I'm a big proponent of definitely personal development and definitely getting from where I'm at to where I want to be. And that's what I teach people in my coaching classes. So it's just really, it's just been a pleasure to evolve because this is not what I thought I would be doing in my life.
Right.
I've been a bookkeeper for 25 years, and I just I have transitioning out of that into coaching and interviewing and things like that. And my goal is to have my live show on be a TV show. And it's in the works for a couple different things. So I'm excited. I'm just, people are my passion, and making sure that people know that they matter and they're not alone in their situations.
And that's so nice of you to say that. I tell you, like from bookkeeper to book writer, how about that for an overcoming story? I want to take the opportunity to thank all you that are joining us tonight. Don't be afraid. Get on there in that chat. Tell us hi. Tell us where you're saying hi from. Thank you, Crystal, for always supporting. Now, we're going to be talking about this, and I'll get to your story here real quick, Dorothyann. Crystal, remember I told you about those cookies? Crystal took the cookies last time, and she says, "Boy, were they good!" I'm not lying, folks. This thing's are great. We'll talk about that at the end. But Dorothy, you mentioned several opportunities for, and I told you we've had several opportunities for us to allow our lives to go downhill. very easy. It's very easy to get into a position where things just seem so dark.
Yep.
Things are coming like cascading on us, and they're not happy things. They're things that could just break you down to the point where you know uh, you want to give up. You want to just say, forget the throw that towel in. We're done.
Yep.
Um, thank you, James, brother, for being with me. All right, Georgia. That's right.
Woohoo!
So we have so many opportunities now.
Yeah.
Not everybody has experienced, death in the family as you have, as I have in the last couple of years. Um, but what do you think makes the difference between having all those things happen and you saying, here's the towel, I'm done, or you know what, in honor of those lives,
Mhm.
I'm gonna do this.
Yeah. Well, that's funny you said that, Enrique, because, well, since my dad died in the pandemic, we were not allowed to have an official
Right.
service
Yeah.
or whatever you want to call it. So I
Intimate.
ended up having to have the celebration of life in my backyard, which my dad was the type, yeah, in my
I did the
backyard.
I did the same.
Did
I
you?
did the same. Yeah.
And my dad was the type of person that, okay, so he's Scottish, part of him Scottish, and he wanted the old fashioned wake where you prop him up in a rocking chair, put a drink in his hand, and every time you go by, you just hit the rocking chair so he swings. This is his personality, right? He's very dry sense of humor, and I get his sense of humor. So he said that, and he wanted to be cremated, so we did as
Right.
much as I possibly could legally to what he
Right.
wanted, so he was cremated, and then um COVID hit. So in my backyard I had a bunch of chairs that were 6 feet apart, and
Yeah.
on and on and on. And we had my brother's friend is a DJ, and he's actually from Trinidad. So Rodney would always play the different music when we would be at my brother's, and have parties and things like that. So in honor of my dad, like, we did a those that wanted to speak about my dad got up and said, some beautiful things about him. But then we also turned it into a true celebration of life. And it was party time after everybody that wasn't family left. And we just, partied all night long, and we had music going until it rained. I guess all night long was 8 o'clock, because the rain came and we had to end that. So it was just one of those beautiful moments where, we honored my dad the way that he would want, the way that I knew he would want. And it was absolutely beautiful. And my parents' uh, favorite song was Lady in Red, by Krista Berg. So we had the DJ play that song, and my brother actually asked my mom to dance. So it was just incredible. And I think we just made the most of our situation. Was it hard? Absolutely. Losing my rock. I was dad's little girl. So no matter how, even at the age of 45. So it was devastating, but in the same sense, it was one of those things, like, my dad had been in pain for 20 years. So it was kind of a relief to see him go, in a sense, because he wasn't suffering anymore. And I think that's what gets me through my hard days. And I could be fine, and then all of a sudden I'll just think of him, and then I'll get, like, really sad, and I'll start crying. But I think in those moments you have to allow yourself to have those emotions and those moments, so to get past the grieving process. It's just one of those things. And I will admit, I had at one point shut my emotions off because of all the devastation that had kept coming into our lives. But I've learned to turn that back on and, feel your way through it, but also know that the legacy that I'm leaving now is the legacy for my father as well. So
Right.
that's definitely what's getting me through.
And you remind me of a time I was actually one of actually the first of my community while I was in the Navy to go to the Command Master Chief program. Um, and this was prior to it being kind of a thing for my community. But I was able to go to Senior Enlisted Academy Command Mastery Program, and while I was there, I mean, I had just got there, so and then I got a phone call. My grandma passed away, and it was either you go and you miss out on this opportunity, or
Yeah.
you stay and you do something. And I decided to stay, and in her honor, in her
Mhm.
honor. So now it became, well, it was my goal, right? But now it became even more of a goal, because it became something that I did for her to be proud of. Um, and these last couple of years have, you know, posed a couple of instances, where you could just say, man, uh, how much more? How much more can you take? How much more can you have? And I mentioned earlier, there's been three moms in my family, uh, either circle or immediate friends that have passed because of COVID, and
Yeah.
we did the same thing, right? So my mom passed because of COVID, and we did everything here in my backyard. Everything was set up, and it's just something that I'm happy that we were able to do, and finally get together. Now, James says, "Hey, I know the feeling. My dad passed in August, and my
Yeah.
grandmother passed 3 days ago." Um,
Sorry to hear that, James.
yeah, yeah. Our condolences, James. It's tough. These are tough times, and um, so he said he used his father's passing as his strength to complete his master's degree. It it's not that we won't have this a challenge. This this is real. This
Yep.
is people we know for all our lives, and now they're no longer gone. That reality isn't real until it actually happens. Because I've always thought, what would I do? My mom passed. Yeah, and I would do this. It was not anything I had ever mentioned that I
Yep.
would do. It's not what I did. And so, but these times also, and our heart goes out to James, and
Yeah.
his loss here in the last 3 days. Um, they could they could feel you. You know,
Mhm.
you can take obstacles and tough periods in your life, and they could be your demise. Right? It
Mhm.
depends on how you see this.
Yep.
Um, because everybody's got a way of dealing with things,
Yeah.
but they could propel you. They could fuel you. Tell us a little bit about how you got to writing your book, because I know it was not the death of your father, but
Yeah.
there were some things that could have, put you under.
Right. I just want to back up one step. When you said that 5 years ago, I had the opportunity to go on my very first missions trip in Dominican, and my dad's youngest brother lived in Taiwan, and he was teaching English over there to the Taiwanese. So I went on this, and he was known as an uncle to everybody on the island. And when I was over there, he passed away. And so, like in the middle of my trip, and I at first I was devastated. I had no family around me. I thank God I was with a bunch of people that I knew from my church. So, they were supportive and things like that. So we got through it. And the leader said, "Well, do you want to go home?" I said, "Well, I'm the only one that could personally travel. And there's no way I could go to Taiwan, or I could go home and comfort my dad." And I thought, well, my uncle would want me to carry on this trip. So the remainder of the trip was in his honor, because he loved kids, and that's what we were there for. We were there to love on the kids, to be in the orphanages and in the schools, and just, bring love and joy to these children. And so, it was comforting after that. So, and I talk a little bit about that in the book. So getting to the book, it's funny because for the last 5 years prior to me writing the book, I I kept getting these promptings, and like I should write a book. And I'm not like, I have read several thousand books in my lifetime before that, but I have never written anything. And I said to a girlfriend of mine, I said, I should write a book about my life experiences. I've been through a lot. And she goes, yes, you should. And I'm like, yeah, but who's going to read it? And she said, well, I'll read it. I think, thanks, Trish. I knew I could count on you. And she was the second person to buy my book. The first one was my husband's ex-wife. So God, I kept on using that I didn't have any time because I was working full time. I had just gotten engaged. My dad just got diagnosed with cancer. So, and work was absolutely crazy. And so then the pandemic hit. And so God says, here's your time, child. Now's the time to do it. So I sat down, and in 3 months I had the book wrote. And so I had it out. It's here it is here, and it's on Amazon if anybody wants to, or on my website. And I just, sat there, and it's kind of like therapy. Like, I've been through several different types of therapy over the years to try to get through my abusive relationships and things like that. And it was but it was therapeutic again to go and write about it. And it's just, it flowed. It flowed so well. I had it. I finished it within 3 months, got it to my editor, and by the end of the year it was out. So it was an incredible journey. And and the way it all started was one of the VPs at work. He was passing me in the hallway, and he said, hey, how's it going? And my standard line is live in the dream. And he said, your dream or someone else's. And that stuck with me. And
Wow.
that is why I wrote the book. That is the fire that fueled The Overcomer, because I thought, you're right. I've been living somebody else's dream, working for somebody else my entire life. Definitely had other businesses as I was going, failed businesses, but I was just like, I'm going to keep going because, how many times did Edison try to invent the light bulb, before it finally stuck, right? So it's just like, and the Energizer Bunny, I just kept going and going and going. And my dad was just like, I'm surprised that you continue to still go on your entrepreneur journey, because I'm the only one in my family that had that entrepreneur spirit, except for my grandfather and my dad's dad. And everybody's like, go out, work for somebody for 30 years, get your pension, retire, and things like that. And I'm like, well, that sounds great and everything, but I want more. Like, I want to help more
Right.
people. You can't help people while you're sitting there doing data entry for bookkeeping, right?
Right.
So
Yeah. I'm
thankful
listening.
for
Yeah.
it.
I'm telling you that, Gabe popped in. Thank you, Gabe, brother.
Gabe.
I appreciate you pushing this out earlier today. And he does such a good job on making sure that we all live streamers get a say in the day, man. So thank you, brother. I appreciate that. You mentioned something, and leadership, folks. This is leadership and overcoming, right? So there's two things here. And you mentioned your VP coming across. What a profound statement to pose to you, right? Because you're right. There's some standard etiquette that happens, at in workplaces, and you pass somebody by. How you doing? Hey, living the dream. We use that a lot in the military. We know that there's some nightmares. So everybody telling you living the dream, they're not real. They're not really telling you what it is. But
Exactly.
you know that he would say yours or someone else's. It's that's like a break. It's like the break. That's the red light. You you got to think about that one.
Well,
And
yeah, and honestly, he had no idea the impact he had on me until I had it out. And everybody's like, "Oh, you should tell people at work about your book," and everything like that. And I thought, I'd get fired if that would happen, because it's not a conflict of interest, but having something on the side. So I thought, you know what, I sent him an email, and I said, Scott, I said, I don't know if you even remember this day, but you said this to me, and that's what sparked this. And he goes, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "Absolutely not." So I brought up Amazon on my computer, and I sent him the link, and I said, "Here you go, see for yourself." And he was just like shocked. He goes, "Thank you. I don't think I've ever had that impact on anybody before." So you never know what impact you have on people, because they're not going to tell you right away. Absolutely not. Or you might never even know. But and that's why I share my story, because I know it helps people, I know it affects people, and I don't need to know at the end of the day if it did help you, but I know it did. I know, because I have had that feedback. But it's like I do what God tells me to do, and it's done.
And that's amazing. Leaders truly don't can't they can't calculate uh appropriately
Yeah.
their impact. They just need to understand that when you say something, it could make or break a person.
Hmm.
And in this case, it made you. That retrospective type of hold on, yeah, you're right. I've been living somebody else's dream all my life. What's going on with me? And then you took action. With what's amazing is that, and we had spoke about this not when we were starting. What's amazing is that it's during a period when all hell broke loose, right? Everything
Yeah.
went crazy.
Yeah.
Things started shutting down. People started hiding. Uh, uh, the world got turned upside down.
Yeah.
And it's during this period that the world gets turned upside down that you end up being this little green, a plant that comes out from the ashes and ends up being a tree. Then you take the tree and make a book. But it's during this time. So tell me about that period, because it's unusual, and a lot
Yeah.
of people have taken advantage of this downtime, but a lot of people haven't.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And it's funny you said that, because I have felt like I'm like the phoenix rising from the ashes, and every day I do things to improve myself. Like I'm not even the same person I was yesterday, and people says, "Well, how is that even possible?" It's because I see something in me that needs to change. So I do everything in my power to change it for the better. And you're right, this pandemic, yes, it's global, it's universal, everybody in the world's experiencing it. So we can sit there and, boohoo and cry about it, or we could take this as an opportunity to learn something. There are so many new podcasts out there, live shows, so many, there's so much free content out there, that if you're not taking advantage of it, the only one you have to blame is yourself. Yes, we're in crappy times, especially here in Canada. Like, we're on lockdown again for like the sixth time. Like, it's been ridiculous. And the vax versus non-vax thing, which is drives me crazy, because I think we should all just come together. We're all in this together, so let's be adults about this. Obviously, take care of yourself. Take care, do what you need to do. If you're for it, that's great. If you're against it, that's great. But just love each other where you're at. That, I don't say too much about it because it's a controversial thing, but I in this time we should be, you know being together more, collaborating more, helping each other. In my community alone, the homelessness has tripled. More people are dying of depression and suicide than actual COVID where I live. Yes, the COVID numbers are up where I live. However, more people are dying of suicide and mental illness and overdoses than ever before. I mean, I'm involved in this group. And so I see, when things happen and people need help on the street. So I'm there and I assist. And if people need food, I do what I can to provide. Um, but daily, people are dying on our streets. And because of loss of hope, their light has been snuffed out. And there should be no need for it, because there is um, so much out there to get them out, but they've lost all hope, so they can't see past that. So to me, that speaks volumes. We should be around, surrounding these people, helping these people, and that's what I've been doing. And in homelessness has been one of my passion projects for a while. And I haven't been on the street yet, but I help the people that go to the street. Like, I give them what they need, when I can, and it's a huge eye opener. Yes, I took advantage of this time and I wrote a book and I am transitioning my careers and things like that. And I love what I do when I'm on different shows like Aloha and things like this, and sharing my story to help other people, you know? And that's what it should be all about. We should be helping people and helping ourselves instead of just bitching and complaining about it.
Well, I had James say, "Hey, sounds as Dorothy has found her gift." you know,
Yes.
and yes, words do have meaning, and definitely we find out as we grow, right? That little rhyme, it wasn't really true,
Yeah.
but they do. They stick, and they can either motivate you or demotivate you, one or the other. But you mentioned something, Dorothy, the loss of hope, and I want to transition into how what elements do you see that were critical for you to become an overcomer? Because loss of hope is usually a catalyst for you to
Mhm.
go downhill.
Yep.
It becomes dark very
Yep.
fast
Yep.
once hope is gone.
Yep.
And so, what are some things that you realized that you had going for you to allow you to get to the point where you have overcome?
Right. Definitely surrounding myself with amazing people. You know, people that are higher than myself. Like if I try and find people that have what I want and learn from them. So and surrounding myself with positive, like-minded people. I have made a whole new batch of friends here on LinkedIn that have absolutely been incredible, and they don't let me stay stuck. I'm not going to say every day of my life is roses. You know, like I said, I've gone through a lot in the last 6 months. My grandmother, I had to put her in a nursing home on my birthday. Uh, the 6 months in July. I lost my dad 4 months ago. We lost two family members, dads, one 2 days ago and one around Christmas time as well. So it's been tough, and that doesn't mean that every day is roses. But I have taking care of myself is pivotal too. For years I never did that. I took care of everybody else and gave myself very little or nothing at all. um so I take the time for my self-care. Every morning I'm in prayer, meditation, work. You know, I do 15 minutes of working out, do my meditation. And I was doing a book called Mirror Work by Louise Hayes. It's here somewhere, so it's in my bedroom. Um, that has helped me too to a whole new level, educating myself daily on different things that I need to, to get past that. Um, from what I'm losing hope on, and I have this. I'm a fighter. I've been a fighter my entire life, meaning that, I fought through so many things that I just keep going. And I don't know if that's the stubborn in me or the part German or Irish or Scottish. There's a heck of a combination, but I just keep on going, and I don't give up. I mean, and when I have my down days, I allow myself to feel it. I reach out to my friends. I have a core group of friends that I know that no judgment. I just need to say something, and they're there for me. And vice versa, I'm there for them as well. It's not just a one-way street, and you need to find that community of people. And I don't know about you, but I got on LinkedIn within the last year, and I thought it was just a tool to help you get a job, but it's actually a whole community of people out there that are willing to help you. And they're incredible, and just tap into that. And if you're not a business owner, then find different groups that help you with what you're struggling with, and definitely ask for help. Because for so many years I didn't do that, and that's why I was drowning. And but I just kept asking for help, searching for the right help. I went to my church, found different tools for some different counseling, whatever I needed to get me through that. And sometimes it was moment by moment, and but you just take that next step and that next step and that next step, and eventually it's like, I don't know if you've ever seen that analogy where you put a frog in water, and you keep adding water, and then you turn up the heat, and eventually, or not the heat, that's it keeps on going up the steps until it's like a stepping stool in the front. Finally, the toad goes up. There's two different analogies. One, the frog dies, and the other one, the frog gets up. So, anyways, be the frog that gets up and out of the hot water.
Outstanding. And now you mentioned some critical points that everybody can or steps that everybody should be considering when
Yeah.
hope seems to be fleeting.
Yeah.
Surrounding yourself with people that are higher, right? And not higher in position or high, they have hope, right?
Yeah.
Get
Exactly.
folks that have a hold of hope because you obviously don't have it. And if you had, it's slowly slipping away. Get around some hopeful people. That is so important. It was tough to try to do that, during the last 2 years because everybody was in their home, but it wasn't impossible. You mentioned a community here that I'm well ingrained in, right?
Yeah.
Not only have I been able to connect with so many people, I think by now it's like 16, almost 16.5. I don't know. I can't keep count because every day it gets bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
But I have this live stream community.
Yeah.
It's marvelous, and all with the intent to help you out. And there's been some folks that I've had connected with here that we have our phone numbers. We text each other.
Yeah.
So it's not a lack of, it's where is it? And
Yeah.
so wherever that is, seek out and find, because the next word that can get you over, like that VP, could come from those communities. So don't be shy. And this is streaming live on YouTube. For those on YouTube, hey, there's communities there too. If you're looking at this and watching it on LinkedIn, well, there's a huge community here. So and so it's important.
Yeah.
But you mentioned something that is something that folks don't take care of, and it's self.
Yeah.
We get into a habit of doing for everybody else, and then when the day comes and those lights start to dim down, we don't have anybody because we've been doing. So you mentioned exercise, you mentioned eating, you mentioned meditation, you mentioned prayer. It's funny because this week, starting Monday, I am on a 10-day leadership challenge.
Oh,
It's
wow.
it's if you go into my posts, you'll see the last 5 days. Today is number 5. 10-day leadership challenge, and all of them deal with self-care, right? Because I don't believe that a leader can be in a position to sustain leadership if they don't take care of themselves. So I've been sharing these things. Next week, I'll be sharing the second part, which goes a little more into, the inside. I've been dealing with a lot of outside stuff. Next week, we're going to go deep. And during these times that you're challenged and things come your way, that's when you need to start drawing from that well, from whatever's deep in there.
Yeah.
And a lot of times there's not nothing to pull up, right? So
Yeah.
what do I do? What should I do to ensure that well has water when it's time to pull some water out?
Well, like today, like I said, it's been a crazy week for me, emotionally. I'm not gonna lie.
Mhm.
There's just a lot of things that have come up. My mom was sick after Christmas. She was in the hospital, and it was just a lot of emotions came this week, and today I decided to take the day off work. You know, it was just I needed a day of self-care, and I needed a day of just, you know, taking care of me, and that's what I did. So that, you know, allowing yourself to have that time and not feel guilty about it, because for years I used to feel completely guilty about it if I did that. And growing up, my dad, oh my gosh, my dad was strict. So if you were sick at from school, you had to stay in your room. And you know, you were, if you were sick, you didn't go get to go out and play, and you never got sick on a Friday because then you're in bed all weekend, right? So that's the type of things that I had learned growing up. So I met my husband, and my husband, when I was working at a different facility, not the one I work at now, but a different facility, an hour away. I was working in a women's shelter. I met my husband. My husband's like, let's play hooky. I'm like, I've never done that before in my life. I'm like, how do you do that? It's easy. You just call in. And so the
It's
first
legal.
time the first time was 4.5 years ago when I met my husband. And you know, I was just like, oh my gosh. But you know, you have to do that. If you don't take care of yourself, how can you be any good at work? If your mind is on everything else, you know, how can you be effective? So your boss should understand. I have a great boss right now, and he understood. I just said, you know, I just need some me time. So definitely, when you see yourself getting tired, when you see yourself getting grumpy, when you see yourself biting someone's head off, you know it's past time to make that time for yourself. So whether that, do some of your favorite things. Like for me, I say write a list of 10 things that you like to do and start doing them. Because yes, in this pandemic, well, I have, my husband and I have been blessed because we have both worked for different companies that were essential. So we have not had a day off except for our vacation days. So we've been working continuously through this entire pandemic. Um, and so, you know, we didn't have time at home like everybody watching Netflix. So we've made sure that in the times that we can, we create our own fun. Now, yes, because we're on lockdown and we're getting out soon, that fun is at home, but there's board games, there's, you know, your favorite movie or whatever you like to do. Some people like taking a bath. I'm not that type of person, but some people like doing that. Some people like doing a spa. That's my thing. Give me a spa day. And, you know, just really read a book. If you need a book to read, the Overcomer, Facing Challenges with Faith and Courage. Go get that book. And you know, just do things that fuel you. And it's different for everybody. Go for a walk. You know, when I'm out, I can tell when I'm stressed out. I'll just go for a walk and or do a workout in my room. You know, whatever it takes. Listen to music. That was another great thing. I didn't realize how much I love music or dancing. You know, dance around your house, look like a fool. No one's going to see you anyways, except for you and your partner, or your children, and just have fun with that. You know, I noticed that during this pandemic, when we were allowed, um, people were spending more time with family, and that's, I think, what this pandemic should teach you: that life is short, make the most of it, and start doing the things that you like to do, because we are all walking. I've seen some people that are walking on the sidewalks that are alive but dead inside because they are so unfulfilled, and there should be no reason for that. You know, if anything else, go volunteer somewhere, because when your problem is off you and on somebody else, it's a complete game changer too. So, um, those are, I don't know, just some of the things that I can think of off the top of my head that, you know, think of something that's bigger than you and go after it. And definitely, you know, it will help you get unstuck of where you're at for sure.
Well, you mentioned earlier, you know, uh, talking about my background and folks, look, just this is open book here. I am in a studio, right? I wish I was in this place because this is where my heart is, so Hawaii. But let me tell you, you could either live your dream or live somebody else's dream, right? Back to your VP.
Yeah.
You could either have a bucket list or live your bucket list. Hey, one of the two. right? We had talked about bucket list, and Dorothy's on her way after this call to Hawaii. Yeah, it would
It's
be
gonna
great.
happen.
But she's going soon. She's going soon. I know it. So you know, obstacles, decisions that we have to make. The buck stops with us, right? Now, some people will say, "Well, uh, you don't know my situation," and I may not.
No.
It still stops with you. The decision still is in your hands. And we mentioned some of the faith-based comments earlier. If there's anything that I do when hope looks like it's going downhill, I run to my rock. And
Yeah.
if there's any hope, there's there's hope in the hope giver. And you know, and you just have to find what that rock is for you. What that shelter is for you. Is it a person? All right. Is it a thing? Okay. As long as it provides the type of encouragement and the type of sustainable, let me say it, sustainable, right? It can't just be like a hit and you something that's going to sustain you through this whole process,
Yeah.
full of hope, faith, encouragement, and a brighter day, right? Because darkness comes, and we like to say, hey, joy comes in the morning, right? It's coming.
Yeah.
And you can get through some obstacles, you can get through some troubled times if you have a solid plan, a
Yeah.
solid plan for those, and you surround yourself with people that can give you that you need at that time. Let's talk a little bit about the book, because we're coming up here on 40 plus minutes. When you decided, tell us a little bit about the book.
It's really basically it's just story after story of my life and how I got through that, right from school to I talk about my abusive relationship in there too. I talk a little bit about my uncle's suicide. um it's basically I am an open book, and everything that I gone through up until March of 2 years ago is in that book, including meeting my husband, going through those rough transition times. As somebody who had been in an abusive relationship, and yes, I had gotten healing, but healing is like an onion. I keep saying, you peel layer after layer after layer, and then when you find somebody who is amazing, sometimes it's hard to take, and sometimes it's hard to accept that love. You're ready for it, you're ready to receive it, but sometimes it's like, you're waiting for the shoe to fall. So even in that period, in the first 2 years of our relationship, I had found myself in a place where um he has an amazing son, and I met my stepson when he was 5. So he's trying to transition out of not having his dad full time, and I'm trying to transition to having like a partner and a stepson. And sometimes, when you have gone through certain things, like triggers come up and you feel insecure, and you feel like, and my husband, you never know when he's going to be home. There's no set schedule. Like back then he would not come home till 6, because that's what it was all about. And so I would be home for hours by myself, and then he's tired and he wants to just veg and then go to sleep. So it felt like, I had moved my entire life, left my parents, left my brother, left my nephews, who were my nephews are like my kids, in some sense. And I left everything behind. And then here I am, and I was alone. And that was a transition. And I talk about that in the book as well, because I know I'm not the only one out there that had suffered through that. And like, you could be in a crowded room and still feel alone. Um, so I talk about that and how we overcame that. And, I talk about um, our wedding, which was absolutely fantastic, one of the best days of my life. And my dad was we got engaged in November of 2018, and 2000 April of 2019 my dad was diagnosed with cancer. So I share, I we weren't even sure if he'd be around for my wedding, but he made it through his chemo and his radiation well. So I talk about my struggles with that, and doing everything, being burnt out from work and everything like that. Because at that moment is when I found another counselor that helped me put my self care program into place. Um, because again, I was just doing what everybody else wanted me to do and not taking care of myself. And I hit a wall, and I talk about that in the book as well. But then it was absolutely beautiful, to have my dad walk me down the aisle and to have the father daughter dance. So I'm extremely grateful for that, and I talk about that in the book. It's funny because people that have read the book, they're like, oh my gosh, I felt like I was right there with you at every moment of your life, and I laughed and I cried along with you. So it's just one of those things that, I basically tell all in there, and how I overcame each and everything. um it's just my life story wrapped up into 142 pages.
And everybody has a story. Everybody that's living has a story. And so thank you for sharing yours, because it does take some courage, right? And you have to overcome fear
Yeah,
enough to get into the mode of writing. And you mentioned earlier, you had to overcome living somebody else's dream and going after yours. But writing something where you can basically share, your life, it's both nerving, but what a blessing! What a blessing to now to have your life in a book that will transcend you. Right, this thing is
yeah,
going to be ISBN, has a number. It's on Amazon. You're going to be gone, and this book's still going to be out there. So in
yeah,
a essence, you will continue to live through this book and
yeah,
all the people that it impacts, because we all have, and everybody listening has had one way or shape or form of an obstacle that they had to overcome.
mhm,
There's some overcoming periods that you listen to them and you're like, whoa, I thought I had a bad time. That's no joke,
yeah,
because as many things as I've overcome in my life, I've never been homeless. I don't know what that is, right? I've been poor, but I haven't been some of the type of poor that I have seen on TV or know of in other countries by visiting there. And I thought I was poor until I saw little kids running and playing in garbage like if it was a play date. It was and then you realize, wow, hold up now. Yeah, in a sense, I was poor, but in comparison, I was rich. And
yeah,
so you have all these opportunities to reflect and to look. But thank you for sharing your life in that way, to being brave enough to write those things down. It's amazing. And you mentioned that we could get this book on Amazon. So folks, we'll make sure, Dorothy, to put that link in the comments
for
so that you
sure.
you can check it out. Um, but I would love to hear from those listening, if you've had times where you had to overcome something, and maybe something that you may share that helped you overcome those obstacles, because it's not just Enrique and Dorothy. There's so many others that have gotten to the point where we had to overcome something. um, and it's amazing how other people, we talked about, James mentioned some things that he is currently going through, that he has to overcome, right? and so soon, 3 days ago is that's right there, right? It's not
Right.
even past a week. So people have things that they have to overcome. And so, um Dorothy, when you talk about these things in your book, um how did it make you feel to finally put all these things in a book?
Well, to be honest, I didn't share with my parents that I was even doing the book at the beginning. I waited till it was done because I wasn't sure how. But then my editor's like, "Oh, well, you got to get permission because you talk about certain things." My mom's medical, I get quite in depth about. So I did afterwards, but it was freeing to put everything in the book, and it was like, okay, here it is, world. This woman from a small town called Windsor, Ontario, you know, and be putting it out there for the world to see. And it was after it, the easy part was writing the book, to be quite honest. The hardest part has been afterwards, trying to market yourself and trying to get it out there for the world to see. um is especially if you don't have an agent, it's difficult, and especially somebody who didn't like the limelight, right? Didn't want to put herself in front and center in front of a camera. Well, now I mean, I love it because I know I switched it, and it was just like I putting myself out there to help other people because this is bigger than me. And so I just had to put that at the forefront. But it was, like a learning curve. And then I'm not gonna lie, there was I wrote the book and then I held it onto it before I put it to the editor because it was just like, are you sure you want to do this? Right? You're supposed to do it, but are you sure? So I procrastinated a little bit. And I noticed that as I did that, each time something happened, it was at a key date. So, for instance, it came back from the editors on my birthday. And then after that, it was on, another significant day. And then, it was out in the world in January. So it's just, the start of something fresh. And so it's just really, when you go after something huge, you're going to have those moments of doubt, but just keep going through it. Plow right through it because it's when you get to the other side, it feels like, the movie Rocky where Sylvester Stallone runs up the stairs and it's just like, yeah, Adrian. So that's what it kind of feels like, once you cross through that, you have your Adrian moment, and you're pumped, and then and then the next cycle, oh, how many sales did you get, and things like that. It's just constantly one thing after another, but it's all growth and it's all good stuff. It's not bad, it's all good stuff.
But what I love about it is that all these milestones were coupled with celebratory dates that allow it, almost prepping you. Hey, this is
Yeah.
something you need to celebrate about, right? Get this thing out. And but I mentioned earlier, and it takes a lot. It takes a lot of guts. It takes a lot of, uh, uh, you know, just saying, "Hey, I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna go for it. And this is it." And so thankfully that you did do that. And so congratulations, folks. Dorothy, the book we're gonna put the link in there in the chat so that you can uh get a hold of the book and get a hold of Dorothy's story. Uh Nadine says congrats on publishing the book. It's
Thank you.
all growth. That's right. Um hey folks, if you have a book in you, I'm encouraging you, and I haven't said much about this, but now that we're talking about books, March, I'm a co-author of a book on leadership that's coming out in March. That's
Awesome.
all I'm going to say about it. But if you have a book, if you have a book in you, this is the time, folks. Don't waste it. Don't let obstacles get in your way. If they do show up, give Dorothy a call or
That's right.
message. I'm sure she's going to get you right and get you into that overcomer mode. But Dorothy, thank you so much for spending this evening with me. Folks, you know what we like to do. Okay. This is about the time when we start talking about cookies. Now I mentioned these cookies before. And hey, I'm not working for Honolulu Cookie Company, but I sure do love these things. So there was a lot talked about today. And Dorothy shared her tips for you to be an overcomer. Guess what? You gotta go back through this whole thing and find out what those tips were. If you can send me a DM and say, "Hey, Dorothy mentioned these tips on overcoming," then you're gonna be in the running for this thing right here. And I'm telling you, these cookies. At who was? Oh, Crystal. Ask Crystal Lockhart what these cookies taste like. But they come in these little individual packets: chocolate, chocolate chip, white chocolate, coconut, all kinds of goodies. And we'll make sure that once we get that, we're gonna announce next Friday the winner of the cookies. And I'm telling you, it's worth it. So go through there. Tell me what Dorothy gave you as tips to overcoming, and I'll put you in the running for that, and I'll announce it next week on Aloha Friday Live. But for now and today, it's been about Dorothy, her story of overcoming, and her new book. We're gonna make sure to put that in the chat,
I
give
will
you an
put it in
opportunity to
chat.
get in there. But thank you, folks. Thank you, Dorothy. Any last parting words on overcoming?
First of all, I just want to say thank you for everybody that's listening, and thank you to you, Enrique, for allowing me to be on your show. And I guess that my last thing that I have to say is just number one, be you. Let your light shine, and definitely give them something to talk about. We all have our story inside of us, and I believe that every single one of us should be an author. And, if you are afraid and you don't know what to do and you're paralyzed and you have to overcome something and you have no idea how to do that, reach out to me and we'll help you. It's been a pleasure being here with you, and just make sure that you take care of yourself, drink lots of water and get out in nature when you can. Here it's minus 14 below, so I don't know what it's like where you're at, but I actually
Hey,
went for a walk this afternoon.
I guarantee you it's not that.
Especially in Florida.
That's right. Folks, thank you so much for being with us tonight. And well, I tell you, Friday night, Aloha Friday Live, it's just getting better and better. Thank you for being with us tonight. And we will see you all next week on Aloha Friday Live, 5 p.m. Eastern Time with our next guest.